I thought knowing the truth would set me free, but all it did was break me. It feels strange to even say that out loud, because I always believed that getting the truth would bring closure, would finally let me breathe again. I was wrong. The truth doesn't heal. It doesn't free you. Sometimes it just chains you to a reality you weren't ready for. His name is Alex. We'd been together for 3 years, and in those 3 years, I thought I knew him better than anyone ever could. We laughed at the same jokes, shared the same dreams, and supported each other through every mess life threw at us. He was my best friend, my partner, the person who promised me forever. Or so I thought. It all started with something small. I noticed that he was coming home late more often. His phone seemed glued to his hand, and there was a strange coldness in his voice that didn't exist before. I tried to brush it off at first. Maybe he was busy at work. Maybe he was just going through a phase. But that gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach grew, each day stronger than the last. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face what was slowly unraveling before me. But the doubt started to consume me. The little things, the way he avoided my gaze when I asked simple questions, the sudden secrecy, the way he'd quickly end phone calls when I walked into the room, it all added up. And then there was the text that popped up on his phone one evening, a name I didn't recognize, and the words, "I miss you." That's when I knew. I had to know. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when I was slowly suffocating with uncertainty. I had to face him, even if it meant everything I thought I knew would come crashing down. So I asked him. I needed to hear the truth, but I never imagined how much it would hurt to finally get it. The truth, it turns out, wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal, and it broke me in ways I never saw coming. Alex and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party. I was just starting my first year of college, feeling lost and overwhelmed in this new world of independence. Alex was a senior, confident, funny, and honestly, a little intimidating. He had this presence that made people gravitate toward him. But there was something about the way he looked at me when we first talked, like I was the only person in the room. I felt seen in a way I hadn't before, and that connection quickly turned into something more. We started off slow, just spending time together, sharing late-night conversations about everything and nothing. I told him my fears about the future, my insecurities about fitting in, and my long-held dream of becoming a writer. He listened with such genuine interest, and over time, it felt like we were the perfect match. He was the person I could trust with everything, and that trust only grew stronger as the months passed. We moved in together after a year of dating, and it felt like everything was falling into place. Life seemed easy with him by my side. But then, something changed. I can't pinpoint exactly when it started, but I began noticing little shifts in his behavior. It was subtle at first, a quietness in his voice when he answered the phone, an increasing number of late nights at work, and these moments where he'd seem distracted, like his mind wasn't really with me, even when his body was. I'd ask him what was on his mind, and he'd brush it off with a simple nothing or just work stuff. I didn't think much of it. People get stressed, right? But it kept happening, and that was the first crack in the facade of our perfect relationship. The moments grew more frequent, and the little hints of something being off became harder to ignore. I noticed how he'd suddenly become protective of his phone. He would keep it face down on the table whenever we were eating dinner, or if I picked it up by accident, he'd grab it quickly, muttering something about an important email. It seemed like such a small thing, but when combined with everything else, the change in tone when we talked, the late hours, the strange distance, I started to feel like something wasn't right. I remember one evening when we were out with friends and I caught him texting someone under the table. I couldn't see the screen, but I saw the way his face changed when he quickly shoved his phone back into his pocket. It wasn't the first time, but it felt like the first time I couldn't brush it off. My heart dropped into my stomach. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself I was just being paranoid. But that gnawing feeling didn't go away. It only got louder. Friends started to notice too. One of my closest friends, Ellie, pulled me aside a few weeks ago and casually asked, "Has Alex been acting different?" I noticed he's been kind of distant. At first, I shrugged it off, telling her it was probably nothing. But then she said something that made me stop in my tracks. "I don't want to scare you, but I saw him talking to someone last week, someone who didn't seem like you." It wasn't much, just a passing comment, but it lingered in my mind. That was the moment I started to doubt everything. I loved Alex. I trusted him, but all the signs were pointing to something else, something I wasn't ready to face. Still, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was tired of the doubt eating away at me. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I tried to tell myself that maybe I was overthinking it, that I was just being insecure. But the longer I waited, the worse it got. The fear, the uncertainty, it was suffocating me. I couldn't go on pretending everything was fine. I had to confront him. I had to know if my suspicions were true or if I was just creating drama in my head. The thought of not knowing was worse than the thought of facing the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So, one evening, after weeks of being consumed by this feeling, I decided it was time. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep questioning his every move. I needed to hear it from him. And I feared that once I knew, nothing would ever be the same again. I had spent days, maybe even weeks, thinking about this moment. It consumed me. Every waking hour was filled with the uncertainty of what I would say, what he would say, and, most of all, what the truth would be. The thought of confronting Alex terrified me. I was terrified that he would admit to something I couldn't unhear, something that would shatter everything I believed in. I rehearsed my words, running them over and over in my mind, trying to find the right balance between calmness and directness. I didn't want to sound accusatory, but I couldn't keep hiding the fact that I knew something was off. By the time I finally gathered the courage, the tension between us was suffocating. Every glance, every silence, felt like a lie waiting to spill out. I had to know. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, but at the same time, I was dreading the moment when he'd finally say the words I feared the most. That evening, we were sitting on the couch after dinner, just the two of us, the air thick with unspoken words. His phone was lying on the coffee table face down as usual. I knew he was waiting for me to speak. It had been building up for so long, but the moment never seemed right. But tonight, I couldn't wait anymore. I had to ask. "Alex," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain calm. "There's something I need to talk to you about." He looked at me, his face soft but unreadable. "What's going on?" His voice was steady, but I could hear the tension in it, too. He knew something was coming. "I don't know how to say this," I started, feeling my hands get clammy. I had prepared myself for this moment, but it still felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to fall into a void. But I can't keep pretending like everything is normal. Something's been off for a while now. I see the way you act, the way you're always on your phone, how you avoid talking to me sometimes. I need to know what's going on." He leaned back, crossing his arms, and exhaled through his nose, his eyes darting to the phone on the table. He didn't pick it up, but I could see his mind working, trying to decide how to handle this. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice cold now, a defensive edge creeping in. "Everything's fine. You're just overthinking things, that's all." The words stung, and I felt my chest tighten. I had expected some form of denial, but hearing it still hurt. I wasn't overthinking anything. I had seen it in his eyes before, how they shifted when I walked into the room while he was on his phone, how he'd get quiet when I asked him a simple question. It was more than just a feeling now. It was a fact. "Alex, please," I whispered, frustration bubbling up inside me. "I'm not overthinking it. I'm not imagining things. I need you to be honest with me. Are you seeing someone else?" The question hung in the air, and for a moment, everything was silent. He didn't say anything, didn't even move. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each second stretching into eternity. I was waiting for him to deny it, to tell me it wasn't true, but the words didn't come. Instead, He just stared at me, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. Is that what you think? His voice was low, controlled, like he was trying to hold back something darker, something he didn't want me to see. I couldn't hold back anymore. My chest ached with a sharp, raw pain, the words pouring out of me before I could stop them. I need you to tell me the truth, Alex. Please. Just tell me if you're cheating, if there's someone else. I can't keep living in this limbo. My voice cracked, and I hated how weak it sounded. But I couldn't help it. The fear of what he might say, the fear of losing him, it had all built up inside of me, and I couldn't hold it in any longer. He stayed silent for what felt like a lifetime, but then he finally spoke, his voice so quiet I almost didn't hear him. I've been seeing someone else. It felt like the ground fell out from beneath me. I didn't hear anything else for a moment, just the deafening silence in my head. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, and I felt dizzy, like everything was spinning out of control. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Why? I finally managed to say, the words slipping out like a sob. My throat felt tight, my voice a whisper. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just end things with me before you did this? His face twisted with something I couldn't place, guilt, anger, maybe both. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you, but I knew it wasn't right. I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't want to lose you either. The words felt like daggers, each one slicing deeper than the last. I had thought I was prepared for this, but nothing had prepared me for the pain, the sense of betrayal that hit me like a ton of bricks. I had loved him. I had trusted him with everything, and now he was telling me that all of it had been a lie. I stood up abruptly, my knees weak, and backed away from him. My hands were trembling as I wiped at my face, unsure whether I was trying to stop myself from crying or just trying to make sense of what was happening. How could you do this to me, Alex? I whispered, my voice shaking with anger and heartbreak. How could you lie to me like this? For so long. I'm sorry, he said, his voice full of regret, but the words felt hollow. Sorry didn't fix this. Sorry didn't change the fact that everything we had was a lie. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break something, anything to release the pain that was tightening around my chest like a vice. But instead, I stood there, frozen, feeling as though the world had turned gray. The truth had come out, but it didn't make anything better. It just made everything worse. I thought the truth would give me clarity. I thought it would make it easier. But now it felt like a wound that would never heal. The pain was too raw, too deep. The truth had set me free, but all it had done was break me. In the days that followed the confrontation, everything felt unreal. My mind wouldn't stop replaying that moment. The words he said, the look on his face. The way he admitted everything so easily, as though it was something he had been carrying for a while, ready to spill at the first opportunity. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that truth, for the crushing weight of it. And yet, there it was, sitting heavy in the pit of my stomach, gnawing away at me every waking moment. I kept asking myself over and over why I had stayed so long without truly seeing it. The signs had been there, hadn't they? The late nights, the strange behavior, the defensiveness when I asked about things that seemed so small before. I had excused it, convinced myself that it was just stress or work or whatever else made sense in my head. But now I felt like an idiot. How could I have missed it all? How could I have ignored all the red flags that were waving in my face? The worst part was the self-doubt that kept creeping in. Was I too trusting? Too naive? Or worse, was I so desperate to hold on to something that wasn't even real? My mind couldn't quiet itself. It raced, wondering how many times I had turned a blind eye, how many moments I had brushed off as unimportant when they had actually been warning signs. I had believed in him. I had put my trust in him completely, and now it felt like everything I had built with him was just a facade. The days felt long and hollow. We barely spoke. When we did, the words felt like an afterthought, meaningless. He apologized over and over, but I couldn't bring myself to believe him anymore. Each time he said it, it felt emptier, like the words were just something he was supposed to say, not something he truly meant. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to make things better, but how could we go back from here? How could we go back to what we had when I knew what he had done behind my back? The distance between us was palpable. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. I couldn't look at him the same way. I couldn't even sit next to him without feeling this gnawing ache in my chest, as if the trust one once had was completely shattered. He would reach for my hand, but I'd pull away instinctively. And when he asked if we could talk, I'd find a reason to avoid it, to avoid confronting what had happened. It felt easier to remain silent, to not face the reality of what he had done. As the days passed, I started to retreat into myself, trying to process the pain. I spent hours thinking about everything, the good times we had shared, the moments that once made me feel like we were perfect together. I began to realize just how much I had ignored in favor of holding onto the illusion of happiness. But now, looking back, I saw everything so clearly, the way he had changed, how he'd become distant, how I had started making excuses for him. Was I in love with him, or had I just been in love with the idea of us? The more I reflected, the more I began to see something else, something that wasn't easy to admit. I had allowed myself to be in a relationship where I wasn't being fully seen, where my needs weren't being met, and where I had been the one giving and giving, hoping he would one day understand how much I cared. But in the end, he didn't care enough to be honest with me. He didn't care enough to choose me over whatever he had found in someone else. That realization was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to believe that I deserved better. I deserved someone who would be honest with me, who wouldn't hide parts of themselves in secret. I deserved someone who wouldn't make me question myself or my worth. It didn't make the pain go away, but it gave me a glimmer of hope that there could be something better on the other side of this heartbreak. And yet, even as I began to understand this, there was still this internal struggle. A part of me didn't want to give up. A part of me still wanted to believe in him, still wanted to believe that we could fix this. Maybe it was the fear of being alone, or maybe it was the hope that things could go back to how they were before. But I knew, deep down, that things could never go back. I couldn't just erase what had happened. I couldn't pretend like it didn't matter. I spent days weighing my options. Should I try to forgive him, try to move on and rebuild from here? Or should I walk away, cut my losses, and start over? The decision felt impossible. Every time I thought about leaving, a part of me would scream in protest, as though walking away meant admitting defeat. But staying would mean living with the constant weight of betrayal, knowing that the trust one had given him was forever gone. And so, I found myself stuck in a painful limbo. Each day, I felt like I was on the verge of a decision, but I couldn't make it. I wanted to leave, but I didn't know if I had the strength to walk away for good. I wanted to forgive, but I didn't know if I could ever truly heal from this. The emotional toll was draining. I felt exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was no longer the person I was before the confrontation. The person who had believed in love and loyalty without question had vanished, replaced by someone who now saw the world through the lens of doubt and caution. I wasn't sure who I was anymore, or what I was supposed to do with all these feelings swirling inside me. But one thing was clear. The truth had come out, and with it, everything had changed. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I could never forget what I had learned, no matter how much I wished I could. It had been weeks since the confrontation, and things had started to settle into an uncomfortable but somewhat manageable routine. I was still raw, but I was beginning to accept the reality of it all. I'd made the decision. Walking away was the only way to preserve any semblance of self-respect. The emotional roller coaster of betrayal, anger, and confusion was still there, but I had started to make peace with the fact that it was time to move on. At least, that's what I told myself. But then, just when I thought I was finally starting to heal, something happened. It was a small moment, a seemingly inconsequential one at first, but it shook me to my core. He reached out to me again. This time, the Though it wasn't just another apology. It wasn't a plea for reconciliation. It wasn't a let's talk and figure this out type of conversation. No, it was different. He had a confession to make, a deeper truth he had been holding back. I wasn't sure why, but I agreed to meet him. Maybe it was because I had hoped this time, I would finally hear the full story and then I could close that chapter of my life for good. Or maybe it was because part of me still felt tied to him, even though I knew it was wrong. I was tired of feeling torn, tired of the weight of uncertainty. He sat down across from me, his eyes avoiding mine. There was something different in his posture, something almost defeated in the way he spoke. Look, I've been thinking a lot about everything, about what happened. And I need to tell you something, he said, his voice shaky. I crossed my arms, waiting, feeling a nervous knot tighten in my chest. It was that same old feeling, the one I had experienced during the confrontation, that sick anticipation of hearing something that would shatter what little peace I had left. He hesitated, taking a deep breath. The truth is, I wasn't just hiding things from you because of the other person. I've been hiding more, something I didn't even want to admit to myself. My heart skipped a beat. My thoughts were racing. What more could there possibly be? Hadn't I already heard the worst? I never meant to hurt you. But there's something else. Something I didn't realize I needed to say until now. His words trailed off, as though he was trying to gather the courage to speak. I leaned forward. What is it? I asked, barely able to control my voice, the mix of anger, confusion, and something else, something more vulnerable that I didn't want to admit. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with guilt. I didn't just cheat on you. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean is that I've been lying to myself for a long time about who I really am, about what I really need. And the truth is, I've been scared to confront that truth for years. I've been trying to live up to this version of myself that wasn't me. It's not just about you or her. It's about me, too. For a moment, I couldn't process what he was saying. The words didn't make sense, not entirely. What did he mean by who I really am? Was he saying that all of this had nothing to do with me at all? That the lies and betrayal weren't just about me, but about something deeper in himself? Something he had been hiding from everyone, including himself? You're telling me all of this now? I asked, feeling the anger rise again. You waited until now to say this? After everything? After all of this, you come to me with some kind of self-discovery speech. He lowered his head, unable to meet my eyes. I know it's too late. I know that what I've done is unforgivable. I don't expect you to understand. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that it wasn't just about me being selfish. It was about me not knowing who I was. I've been pretending for so long, trying to fit into this mold of what I thought I was supposed to be, and I ended up losing everything in the process. I didn't know how to react. I had spent weeks telling myself that the betrayal was about him, about the way he had disrespected me, and about the fact that he had chosen someone else over me. But now, it was like the ground beneath me was shifting again. Was he telling me that his actions weren't about me at all? That they were about his own internal struggle? I could feel my emotions tearing in two. On one hand, a part of me wanted to understand him, wanted to believe that this revelation somehow made sense of the chaos. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the reality of what he had done to me. How did his internal battles make it okay for him to betray me? To lie? To cheat? I stood up, pacing around the room, my mind a storm of confusion. So, what now? I asked, turning back to him. Do you expect me to feel sorry for you? To feel like what you did was justifiable because you were going through some kind of identity crisis? Because that's not how this works. I felt the anger flare again, sharp and bright. You should have dealt with your own issues before dragging me into this. I didn't sign up for this emotional chaos. I didn't sign up for you breaking me down, only for you to tell me it was all because you were lost. The silence between us felt suffocating. My chest ached, my heart felt like it was being squeezed from all sides. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this new truth, this deeper layer of his pain. It didn't make what he did right. It didn't change the fact that he had destroyed everything, but in some strange way, it gave me a new perspective. A part of me understood now that it wasn't entirely about me, but it didn't make it any easier to forgive. I looked at him, my mind in turmoil, and realized that I was standing at a crossroads. A choice had to be made. Do you want me to fix this? I asked quietly, my voice barely a whisper. Do you want me to understand and try to heal? Or do you just want to walk away and leave me with this broken version of us? The room was filled with the weight of the question, heavy and uncertain. And in that moment, I realized that my decision, whatever it might be, would change everything. The room felt smaller now, suffocating in its silence. I stood there, heart pounding, thoughts swirling like a tornado in my mind. His confession had shattered the fragile foundation I had built around my own healing, but the words also brought an unexpected clarity. The pain wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the realization that this relationship was never going to be what I had imagined. I looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel hatred. Instead, I felt a deep, aching sadness for him, for me, for everything we could have been, but never were. I wasn't angry at him anymore for breaking me. I was angry at myself for not recognizing the truth sooner. So, what now? I asked again, my voice softer this time. It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't a demand. It was a question that had no clear answer. Not for him. Not for me. He didn't have one. He didn't have a solution, a way to fix the damage. We were standing at a crossroads, both of us, but neither of us knew which way to go. I don't know, he said quietly, his voice broken. I know I've messed everything up. I've destroyed this. And I don't expect you to forgive me, but I don't want to lose you either. I paused. His words lingered in the air, but they didn't hit me the way I expected. Instead of feeling the pull to stay, to try and fix what was broken, I felt a weight lifting off my chest. The weight of uncertainty, of guilt, of doubt, all seemed to fade in that moment. I had done enough thinking. I had spent weeks wrestling with the decision of what to do. And now, standing here with him, I realized I didn't need any more answers. I knew what I had to do. I think I need to let go, I said, my voice steady, though my heart felt fragile. Not because I don't care, but because I care too much to myself. I need to stop holding on to something that's already slipped away. His face fell. He didn't argue. He knew, too. He knew that this was the end. I took a long breath, feeling the weight of the decision settling within me. As painful as it was to admit, as much as I still loved him in some way, I couldn't keep pretending that we could make this work. There was nothing left to salvage. What had once been love had now turned into something unrecognizable. And so I left. The days that followed were a blur of emotion. At first, I couldn't shake the loneliness. There were moments when I thought I had made the wrong choice, that maybe I had been too harsh, too quick to walk away. But slowly, I began to heal. The silence that had once felt like a gaping hole in my chest started to feel like peace. I started doing things for myself. I took long walks, spent time with friends, reconnected with parts of myself I had lost while tangled in the chaos of the relationship. It wasn't easy. The healing was slow, but it was real. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, I realized something. The truth had hurt. But in the end, it was the truth that had set me free. I wasn't broken anymore. I was stronger than I had been before, though it was a different kind of strength. It wasn't the kind that comes from holding on to something that doesn't serve you. It was the kind that comes from choosing to walk away, even when it feels impossible. And as I sat there, with the cool breeze brushing my face, I made peace with my decision. I knew there would be days when the pain would creep back in, when I would miss the good parts of what we had. But I also knew that I had made the right choice. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that set us free.